I believed I understood exactly who I was. Until a woman I'd never met before, standing in a pharmacy line, unraveled my entire sense of self with a handful of words. She disappeared 25 years ago. My name is Jessica Thompson. And this is how I learned that nearly everything I trusted about my life was untrue. It began on a gloomy Tuesday in Portland. I was queued at Walgreens, feeling wretched from a sinus infection, when an older lady turned around and fixed her gaze on me like she was looking at a ghost. Her complexion went pale, her hands trembling. Then she said something that would change my life forever. "You look exactly like my sister." People had told me similar things before. Friends often commented that I had one of those recognizable faces. My best friend, Ashley, liked to joke that I reminded everyone of an old classmate or neighbor. I smiled politely, the way you do when a stranger makes an odd comment. But this woman didn't smile back. Instead, tears welled up in her eyes. "She disappeared 25 years ago," she murmured, her voice breaking. My polite expression began to fade. There was something in her tone. Something raw, a desperation that sent chills across my skin. I gave a nervous laugh, trying to ease the tension. "I'm really sorry to hear that. What was her name?" She stared at me for what felt like an eternity. Then she spoke two words that froze the air around me. "Your name." The prescription bottle slipped from my grip. I watched it tumble, almost in slow motion, striking the floor with a sharp crack as the pills scattered under displays and rolled across the tiles. Neither of us bent down to gather them. "My name," I whispered. "Rachel," she said softly. "Rachel Marie Anderson. My middle name is Rachel. Jessica Rachel Thompson." My parents had always said I was named after my grandmother, a woman I never met, who died before I was born, or so I'd been told. The woman stepped nearer, close enough that I could see every wrinkle etched into her worried face, every strand of silver in her hair. "You have her eyes," she whispered. "Green, with those golden flecks. And that scar above your eyebrow." Automatically, my fingers rose to touch the small scar above my right eye. I'd always believed I'd gotten it when I fell off my bike at 7. My dad had rushed me to the ER, my mom gripping my hand while they stitched me up. I could remember it clearly. Or maybe I couldn't. "How old are you?" she asked. 32. She would be 32. Her voice cracked as she said it. "She had a birthmark," she went on her left shoulder, shaped like a crescent moon. Suddenly, the pharmacy felt blindingly bright and suffocating. I heard the buzz of fluorescent lights overhead, the pounding of my heart drowning out the quiet music in the background. An elderly man coughed behind us, but neither of us moved. "I'm sorry," I managed, my voice unsteady. "You must be confusing me with someone else." But even as I said it, a cold certainty seeped into my spine, because I did have that birthmark, shaped exactly like a crescent moon. I'd always thought it was a charming little quirk. My college boyfriend used to kiss it and call it my good luck charm. The woman's hands trembled as she reached into her purse and pulled out a faded photograph. "This was her," she said. I looked down at the picture and felt my world tilt. A little girl beamed back at me with a gap-toothed smile. The same nose, the same chin, those unmistakable green eyes with gold flecks. She was wearing a pink dress I could swear I remembered owning. "I'm sorry," I whispered, backing away. "I have to go." I turned and ran from the pharmacy, leaving behind my prescription, and possibly the life I'd always believed was mine. The rain outside hit my face like icy needles, but I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I sat there, engine off, rain battering the windshield, struggling to make sense of what had just happened. But here's the thing about the truth. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't care if it's convenient or fair. Sometimes, it finds you in a pharmacy line on a wet Tuesday when you're sick and unguarded. Sometimes, it comes in the form of a stranger's tears and the sound of your own name spoken by someone who's searched for you for decades. My name is Jessica Thompson. At least, I believed it was. But that afternoon, I started to question whether I was actually Rachel Marie Anderson, and whether my entire existence was built upon someone else's heartbreak. That morning had begun like any other Tuesday in my life. I woke up around 7:30 in my Pearl District apartment, the one with the exposed brick and the window that never shut properly. Rain tapped against the glass, typical for Portland in March. My head felt like it was stuffed full of cement-soaked cotton. I rolled over, picked up my phone, and squinted at the screen. 3 messages from Ashley asking if we were still meeting for coffee on Thursday. 1 text from my mom, a gif of a dancing cat and the words, "Happy Tuesday, sweetie." And 2 missed calls from a client who insisted the logo needed to be more purple, but less purple. My name is Jessica Thompson, and I design logos for small businesses. It's not glamorous, but it pays the rent and lets me work in my pajamas. I'd been at it for 5 years, ever since graduating from Portland State with a graphic design degree and a towering pile of student debt. I dragged myself out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen. The apartment was tiny but cozy, decorated with thrift shop treasures and plants I somehow hadn't managed to kill. The walls were covered in my own paintings and photos from family trips. 1 picture showed my parents and me at Crater Lake when I was 15, squinting into the summer sun. Another was from college graduation, my dad beaming in his one suit, my mom crying happy tears. Susan and Michael Thompson, the best parents anyone could wish for. Mom worked as a pediatric nurse, always coming home with stories about courageous kids and grateful families. Dad was an accountant downtown, the sort who genuinely enjoyed tax season. They'd been married 35 years and still held hands on walks. I brewed tea with honey, hoping it might soothe my throat. While the kettle warmed, my phone rang again. Mom's smiling face appeared on the screen, the photo I'd taken at her birthday dinner. "Morning, honey," she said when I picked up. "How are you feeling?" "Like my head's full of wet concrete," I croaked. "Did you call the doctor? Remember how sick you got in high school when you let it go too long?" I did remember. She'd taken 3 days off work to make me soup and force me to drink endless cups of water, sleeping in a chair beside me to watch my breathing. "I'll go to the walk-in clinic," I promised. "Good. And don't forget Emma's wedding next month. Aunt Karen called yesterday to be sure you got the invitation. You know how she is about RSVPs." Emma, my cousin, Aunt Karen's daughter. We'd grown up spending summers at the coast, building sandcastles and collecting shells. The Thompson family was small but close-knit. Just my parents, Aunt Karen, Uncle Bill, and their 2 kids. I'd always thought it was sad that all my grandparents had passed before I was born. No stories about Grandma's pies or Grandpa's old war tales. After I hung up, I took a shower, pulled on my dad's worn University of Oregon sweatshirt, slipped into jeans, and headed to the clinic. The doctor confirmed what I already knew: a sinus infection. She handed me a prescription for antibiotics and told me to rest. By the time I left, the rain had intensified. I sat in my Honda Civic, debating whether to fill the prescription or just drive home and collapse. Responsibility won out. The Walgreens on Northwest 23rd was only a 5-minute drive. A parking spot opened right in front. One of those little gifts you hardly notice. Inside, the pharmacy was busy but manageable. An older man argued over insurance coverage. A young mom juggled a toddler and a paper bag. Ordinary Tuesday things. I passed my prescription to the technician behind the counter, a college kid who looked about 12. 20 minutes. He mumbled, not meeting my eyes. So I wandered through the aisles, picking up things I didn't need: chapstick, a magazine promising to declutter my entire life, a bag of cough drops, Little things a normal person buys while living a normal life. If anyone had told me that in 20 minutes, everything I believed about my identity would collapse, I would have laughed. I was Jessica Thompson. There were baby pictures of me on the mantle. Starting around age 3. I had a birth certificate, a social security number, a past. But pasts can be rewritten. And sometimes, the most mundane moments are just the prelude to everything changing. The pharmacy line inched forward. I shifted my weight, trying to ignore the pressure in my face. The woman in front of me was balancing an armload of gardening supplies. Gloves, plant food, a hand trowel. Her gray hair was pinned neatly in a bun. Her cardigan reminded me of something my mother might wear. When she turned around to leave, our eyes locked. In an instant, her face went from distracted to shocked, her color draining as if she'd seen an apparition. Her mouth fell open, and the gardening supplies slipped from her grasp. "Oh my God," she whispered. I crouched to help her pick up her things. "Are you okay? Should you sit down?" She gripped my wrist with surprising strength. "You look exactly like my sister." I straightened, easing my hand away. "People tell me that a lot," I said. "No," she insisted, her head shaking. "You don't understand. It's not just a passing resemblance. It's everything, your face, the way you tilt your head, your eyes, even that scar." She lifted a finger to point at the tiny mark above my eyebrow. Automatically, I touched it. "I got this when I fell off my bike," I said. "When?" "You were 7. She finished. It wasn't a question. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because Rachel got the same scar when she was 7. 2 weeks before she disappeared. She was trying to ride without training wheels, hit a rock, and flew over the handlebars. 3 stitches at St. Mary's Hospital. The pharmacy felt suffocatingly warm. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. "I think you've got me confused," I stammered. "My name is Jessica." "What's your full name?" She leaned closer, her gaze searching mine with an intensity that terrified me. "Jessica Thompson." And then, without meaning to, I added, "Jessica Rachel Thompson." She gasped like she'd been struck. Her purse fell to the floor. "Rachel. Your middle name is Rachel." "It's common," I said quickly, though my voice sounded strange to me. "How old are you?" 32. I was born in 1993. She nodded slowly. Rachel would be 32. Born May 15th, 1993. Tears were pouring down her cheeks. She had green eyes with golden flecks. She was left-handed. "Are you left-handed?" I looked down. My left hand still clutched the prescription paper. "A lot of people are left-handed," I murmured. She had a birthmark on her left shoulder, shaped like a crescent moon. "My mother had it too. It runs in our family." My fingers tightened around the paper. I did have that birthmark. I'd always thought it was special. "How could you possibly know that?" I asked, though my throat felt tight. "I need to show you something." Her hands shook as she rummaged in her purse and pulled out an old leather wallet. From it, she withdrew a photograph, holding it out with trembling fingers. "This is Rachel." It was taken 3 days before she vanished. I stared down at the picture and felt the ground tilt beneath me. A little girl smiled at the camera, 2 front teeth missing, wearing a pink bicycle helmet and matching knee pads. Behind her, a red bike with white handlebar streamers gleamed in the sun. But it was her face, my face, that made me grab the counter to steady myself. It wasn't just similar. It was identical to the photos of me my parents had displayed in our home. The earliest ones they said were taken when I turned 3 because everything before that had supposedly been destroyed in a house fire. "She was playing in the backyard," the woman said softly, her eyes distant. "In Denver." I went inside for a phone call. My mother was calling to discuss Sunday dinner. I was only gone 5 minutes. When I came back out, the gate was open, and Rachel was gone. We searched for hours, days, years. "I'm not her," I whispered, though I barely believed it. I grew up in Portland. My parents are Susan and Michael Thompson. "I've always been Jessica." She drew in a trembling breath and slowly reached into her bag again. "Then explain this," she said. She held out another picture. An age progression rendering showing what Rachel might look like at 30. The face staring back could have been lifted from my driver's license. What was her last name? I heard myself ask. "Anderson," she replied, her voice cracking. "Rachel Marie Anderson." She placed a hand on her chest. "My name is Carol Anderson. I'm your sister." The antibiotic bottle slipped from my numb fingers. When it hit the floor, pills skittered across the tiles like 100 tiny, white secrets spilling out. I turned and fled the pharmacy, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. The automatic doors felt too slow. I crashed through them into the cold rain, gasping for air that wouldn't come. My car was only a short distance away, but it felt impossibly far. My hands shook so badly that I dropped my keys twice before finally unlocking the door. Inside, I clutched the steering wheel, knuckles white, while the rain hammered the windshield, blurring everything beyond it. No matter how tightly I squeezed my eyes shut, I kept seeing that little girl's face, the face that looked exactly like mine. Rachel Marie Anderson. The name echoed in my head like a melody I'd never learned but somehow knew by heart. I drove home on autopilot, climbed the stairs to my apartment, and slammed the door behind me. My reflection in the hallway mirror stopped me cold. I searched my own face, hoping to find evidence that I was who I'd always believed, but all I saw were questions. I went straight to the bookshelf where my parents had kept our photo albums. I pulled down the oldest one, Jessica's early years. My mom's handwriting neat on the cover. The first photo showed me blowing out candles on a birthday cake at 3 years old. Chocolate smeared across my cheeks. A party hat slipping sideways. I flipped through the pages. Christmas mornings. First day of preschool. Family vacations. But no photos before age 3. Nothing of me as a baby. Nothing to prove I'd even existed before that birthday cake. I pressed my hand to my mouth. Then, without letting myself think, I grabbed my phone and called my mother. She picked up on the second ring. "Hi, sweetheart," she chirped. "Did you get your prescription filled?" "Mom," I said, my voice trembling, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Jessica? What's wrong? You sound upset. Why don't I have any pictures from when I was a baby?" The silence stretched so long I could hear her breathing quicken. "We've explained this before," she said eventually. "The house fire when you were 3. We lost everything." "What house fire?" "Where were we living then?" "In California. Before we moved here." "Where in California?" Another pause. "Sacramento." "What was our address?" "Jessica, why are you asking about this?" "Just answer me," I almost shouted. "Please." "What was our address?" I don't remember the exact address," she stammered. "It was a long time ago." "You remember everything," I whispered. "You still have the receipt from my kindergarten shoes. How can you not remember where we lived?" "Sweetheart, you're scaring me." "What's going on?" I hung up before she could say more. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone. I walked into the bathroom, pulled my shirt off my shoulder, and looked at the mark on my skin, the crescent moon birthmark. I'd never thought much of it. Now it felt like it was shouting the truth at me. I picked up my phone and called Ashley. "Can you come over?" I croaked. "Jess, I'm at work." "What's happening?" "Please." I need you. 20 minutes later, Ashley arrived, still wearing her dental hygienist scrubs. I opened the door and, without waiting, started pouring everything out. Every detail tumbled out of me. The woman at the pharmacy, the photos, the birthmark, the scar, the missing little girl named Rachel. Ashley listened silently, her expression growing more troubled with each word. When I finally stopped, she took a slow breath. Okay, she said gently. Let's look at this logically. It could all be coincidence. Rachel is a common name. Lots of kids fall off bikes and get scars. Birthmarks happen. But what about the fact that I have no pictures before age 3? I demanded. That my parents couldn't tell me where we lived? That they've never taken me back to California? I don't know any family friends from before we moved to Portland. Nothing. Ashley pressed her lips together, clearly searching for something reassuring to say and not finding it. What do you want to do? She asked softly. I need the truth. I reached for my laptop, opened Facebook, and started typing. Help me find her. It didn't take long. Carol Anderson. Retired teacher. Living in Portland. Her profile picture showed her in a garden, smiling with 2 small kids I guessed were her grandchildren. Her cover photo was a row of colorful blooms. That's her, I whispered. That's the woman I saw. I scrolled through her photos. Birthdays, holidays, family reunions. Then I spotted an album called Never Forgotten. My finger hovered over it before I finally clicked. The first image was a family portrait. A younger Carol, maybe in her 30s, stood beside a man who looked kind, his arm around her shoulders. 2 girls were in front. One about 10, the other about 7, beaming with a gap-toothed grin. The caption read, "The last photo of all of us together." Rachel disappeared 2 weeks later. We never stopped hoping. I couldn't look away from the little girl's face. It was my face. Oh my God, Ashley whispered. Jess, you have to meet her. I nodded, my throat too tight to reply. With hands that wouldn't stop shaking, I clicked message. Mrs. Anderson, this is Jessica, from the pharmacy. I think we need to talk. 3 days later, I sat across from Carol at a small cafe on Hawthorne Boulevard. She'd replied within minutes, suggesting we meet somewhere public but quiet. I hadn't slept much since that day, lying awake at night replaying every memory, or wondering which ones were even real. Carol arrived with a large tote bag and a manila folder. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying ever since we last met. She sat down carefully, as though afraid sudden movement might make me bolt. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice soft. I can't imagine how overwhelming this is. I nodded. Words felt impossible. She opened the folder and began laying out its contents. Newspaper articles, flyers, police records, an entire history of searching laid out between us. This was in the Denver Post, she murmured, pointing to an old headline. Local girl vanishes from backyard. It was dated June 3, 1998. We just moved there. A new neighborhood. I thought the fence was secure. She handed me another clipping. Rachel Marie Anderson, age 7. Brown hair, green eyes with golden flecks. Left-handed. Birthmark shaped like a crescent moon. Scar over right eyebrow. Without meaning to, my hand drifted to my shoulder. The police thought she wandered away. Carol continued, her voice breaking. Then they believed someone took her. We spent years searching. My husband quit his job. We hired private investigators. Put up posters. She pulled out a photo album, the same one I'd glimpsed on her Facebook page. Her first day of school, she said, showing me a picture of the little girl beaming in sneakers that lit up when she walked. She insisted on wearing them, even though they didn't match her dress. Page after page of birthday parties, holidays, family vacations. I saw myself in every photo. Not just a resemblance. Me. She turned to a Polaroid. This was taken the morning she disappeared. Carol whispered. A little girl with milk on her chin grinned up from a bowl of cereal. She was going through a phase where she wanted pictures of everything. I must have taken 50 that week. I don't remember any of it. I murmured, my voice hoarse. You were so young, she said. Trauma can block memories, especially in children. She reached into her bag again and pulled out a small, well-loved stuffed elephant. Its fabric was worn thin in places, a button eye hanging by a thread. This was yours, she said, her hand trembling. You called him Peanut. You took him everywhere. Something flickered in the back of my mind, a phantom sensation of soft gray fur pressed against my cheek. My daughter Emma found him under Rachel's bed after she disappeared. I've kept him all these years, hoping I'd be able to give him back to you. This doesn't prove anything, I said. But my voice sounded thin, unconvincing. Lots of kids have stuffed elephants. Carol nodded slowly. You're right. Which is why I brought this. She reached into the folder again and took out a DNA test kit. I've already taken mine. If you're willing, we can know for sure. I stared at the kit. A plastic box small enough to fit in my palm but heavy with consequences. What happened to your husband? I asked quietly. David died 5 years ago, she said, voice thick with sorrow. His heart. He never stopped believing we'd find you. But the not knowing, it broke him. Every phone call, every knock at the door. He thought it might be you. She wiped her eyes. He would have been so happy to see you again. She paused, then added, Emma is 37 now. Married with 2 children. She was 10 when you vanished. She blamed herself for years. She thought she should have watched you more closely. It shaped her whole life. She became a social worker specializing in missing children. I picked up the DNA kit, hands shaking. How long will it take? If we pay extra, about 2 weeks. 2 weeks to find out if my life had been built on a lie. I opened the kit and followed the instructions, swabbing my cheek while Carol watched, tears streaming down her face. There's something else you should know, she said softly when I sealed the envelope. Your parents, Susan and Michael, how did they come to have you? They're good people, I said, my voice rising. They love me. I'm not saying they don't. But if you're Rachel, someone took you away from us. Someone gave you to them. They must have believed whatever story they were told. I whispered. Jessica, you were on milk cartons, on TV shows. Your face was everywhere. How could they have never recognized you? I thought of all the times they'd changed the subject about our life before Portland. The way they'd never wanted to travel back to California. The gaps in their stories. Carol rested her hand over mine, her touch warm and steady. We'll know soon, she said quietly. But in my heart, I already know. A mother doesn't forget her child. The DNA results came back sooner than expected. 10 days instead of 14. I'd been checking my email obsessively. Sometimes every few minutes. My stomach tied in knots. When the notification finally appeared, I stared at it for a long time, too afraid to click. But eventually, I opened it. 99.9% match. I was Rachel Marie Anderson. I sat down on my bathroom floor and sobbed until I couldn't catch my breath. They weren't exactly tears of grief or relief. They were something deeper. A complete unraveling of the person I'd believed I was. The hardest thing I've ever done was driving to see the Thompsons. My parents. But maybe not. Not in the way I'd always thought. I knew they'd be home on Sunday. When my mom answered the door, her usual smile faded when she saw my expression. We need to talk, I said, my voice shaking. They sat together on the beige couch, holding hands. I placed the DNA results on the coffee table between us. My mother began to cry immediately. My father went so pale I worried he might pass out. We wanted a baby so badly, Mom whispered. We tried for 10 years. 3 miscarriages. Failed adoptions. Then Michael's cousin called. She said she knew someone who had a little girl who needed a home. The mother was supposedly addicted to drugs. You knew, I said, my voice flat. You had to have known that wasn't true. My dad swallowed hard, his voice ragged. We suspected something wasn't right. But we were desperate. And you were. You were so perfect. You convinced yourselves you were saving me. I whispered. But you were stealing me from a family who loved me. He closed his eyes. We moved here from Ohio, not California. My mom said in a broken voice. We changed our names. Michael used to be Mark. I was Sandra. We created new lives. And you never thought I'd find out? We tried not to think about it, Dad said quietly. We never watched the news. We never looked at those posters. They loved me. That part was true. They gave me piano lessons, helped me with homework, cheered from the sidelines at soccer games. But they had also stolen me. While Carol spent 25 years wondering whether her little sister was alive or dead, they were raising me as their own. The legal complications took months to sort out. My parents, Susan and Michael, or rather, Sandra and Mark, were charged with custodial interference and identity fraud. Their lawyers argued that the statute of limitations had expired, that they had given me a safe and happy childhood, that I had been deeply loved. All of that was true. But none of it erased the fact that what they'd done was a crime. In the end, they were sentenced to probation and community service. The judge cited their age, their clean records otherwise, and my conflicted feelings about seeing them punished. I didn't want them in prison. I only wanted the truth. Meeting Emma, my sister, was surreal. She looked so much like me around the eyes. We even laughed the same way. Her children, my niece and nephew, welcomed me with the unfiltered openness of kids. Are you the aunt who was lost? Little Lily asked me, eyes wide. Grandma said you were gone, but now you're home. Carol introduced me to the rest of the Andersons at a backyard barbecue that felt like stepping into an alternate reality. Aunts and uncles who had searched for me. Cousins who had grown up hearing stories about the sister who vanished. They hugged me with tears in their eyes, and 25 years of love I'd never known was waiting for me. I decided to keep my name, Jessica, for work and everyday life. But legally I added Rachel back. Jessica Rachel Anderson Thompson. It was a mouthful, but it felt right. Because I was both of them. The girl who was taken, and the woman who'd been loved in spite of it all. The Thompsons, my other family, are still part of my life. It's complicated, and sometimes it hurts. But they are the only parents I remember. We meet for dinner every month. Careful conversations over familiar recipes. They're in therapy, trying to understand and take responsibility. I am, too. Carol and I have coffee together every Tuesday. She brings photos and family stories, filling in all the blanks. Sometimes she brings Peanut, the stuffed elephant, and I hold it while she talks. I've started to remember pieces of that other life. The creak of the swing set in our old yard. The way David, my father, would lift me high into the air until I squealed. Emma braiding my hair. And the pharmacy, where it all began, has become a strange landmark. Sometimes, I still stand in that same spot, remembering the moment when a stranger's grief collided with my own forgotten past. I've learned something through all of this. Identity isn't only who you believe yourself to be. It's who you've been, who you've lost, and who you decide to become next. I was stolen, but I was also cherished. I was lost, but I was also alive. These contradictions don't cancel each other out. They layer together, brushstroke after brushstroke, into something intricate and beautiful that belongs only to me. After the local news picked up my story, it spread far beyond Portland. Strangers began to send messages about their own hidden histories, their own questions about who they truly were. I told all of them the same thing. The truth doesn't wait for when you're ready. Sometimes, it finds you in the most ordinary places. A grocery store line, a sidewalk, a rainy Tuesday afternoon, when you least expect it. If you connected to this story, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment about your own experiences with identity, family, or the unexpected ways life can change. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real stories that prove just how extraordinary ordinary moments can be.